What makes a movie important? Did it break new ground in terms of filmmaking on a technical level? Did it write new rules for what can be done within the confines of its genre? Or did it set new standards for what can or should be done within the film medium as a whole? All of these things can make a film important, and there are many different organizations of archivists and film enthusiasts dedicated to preserving the most important movies and securing their rightful place in history. But sometimes they don't always succeed. Whether it's due to an accident or due to simply being lost to time and forgotten, this is the most important lost films. Peludopolis is a 1931 animated film directed by the Italian-born Argentine animator Quirino Cristiani. Cristiani is also known for the animated films El Apostol and Sin Dejar Rastros, both of which are important lost films in their own right. But what sets Peludopolis apart is the fact that it is widely considered to be the first ever animated film to have sound. Peludopolis wasn't originally intended to have sound, but Cristiani decided to add the feature halfway through the film's production. Because Argentine movie theaters weren't capable of playing sound films at the time, a second disc containing effects as well as several songs was needed to play alongside the film reel. The movie was, like Cristiani's others, a political satire focusing on then Argentine president Hipólito Yrigoyen. In the original plot, Yrigoyen floated around in his boat called the Peludo City, which represented Argentina, while being chased around by hungry sharks, which represented the Radicals' political party. However, a year into Peludopolis' production, President Yrigoyen was removed from office by a military coup d'etat. Cristiani initially halted production but eventually decided to rewrite the film, placing less emphasis on Yrigoyen and the sharks and instead added an everyman protagonist named Juan Pueblo. After all the changes were said and done, Peludopolis was finally released on September 16, 1931. Unfortunately, like so many other films made during this time, including others in this video, the only prints of Peludopolis were destroyed in accidental fires within Cristiani's studio, one in 1957 and another in 1961. To this day, only some still frames, promotional material, and a making-of video have survived, and despite Peludopolis' importance in animation history, it seems likely that it will never be found. London After Midnight is a 1927 American horror film directed by Todd Browning, who was also known for the 1931 film adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula and starring Lon Chaney.
I was Lon Chaney's lover. Go back and love him.
One of early cinema's greatest and most prolific character actors, known for other silent-era horror films such as The Phantom of the Opera and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. London After Midnight was also one of Lon Chaney's last films before he passed away just 3 years later. London After Midnight was simply passed over by many movie critics, with Variety calling the characters mostly uninteresting and predicting that the film would make money based solely on Lon Chaney's name. The film did indeed go on to become a moderate financial success, and modern critics widely praised Chaney's performance as well as the movie's makeup effects. Despite London After Midnight's status as a lost film, Chaney's appearance has become a somewhat popular icon in horror history, having influenced several of the many film adaptations of Dracula as well as some modern horror films such as 2014's The Babadook. London After Midnight follows Edward Burke, a representative from Scotland Yard, as he investigates the death of a wealthy man named Roger Balfour. The death is initially ruled a suicide despite the objections of Balfour's close friend and neighbor, Sir James Hamlin. 5 years later, Burke is once again summoned to the Balfour residence after Hamlin reports strange lights emanating from within and bizarre behavior from the house's new tenants, a man in a top hat with long hair and sharp teeth, as well as a ghostly pale woman with long robes. After a series of seemingly supernatural events occurs, including the man in the top hat appearing in a bedroom, the pale woman flying like a bat, and the animated corpse of Roger Balfour walking around, Burke tells Lucille, Balfour's daughter, that he suspects her father was murdered. Hamlin enters the Balfour mansion where the man in the top hat reveals himself to be Burke in disguise, and hypnotizes Hamlin into believing it is 5 years earlier. This causes Hamlin to reenact the events leading up to Balfour's death, which he framed as a suicide in order to marry Lucille against Balfour's wishes. The film ends with Burke lifting the trance and apprehending Hamlin. The last known copy of London After Midnight was destroyed in the 1965 MGM Vault Fire, alongside the only prints of hundreds of other silent films and early sound films. In 2002, Turner Classic Movies released a recreation of the film using the original script and some still frames, which are all that remain of the original movie. To this day, London After Midnight remains the holy grail of sorts for many lost media enthusiasts. The Power of Love is a 1922 silent drama film directed by Nat G. Deveridge, notable for being the first 3D feature-length movie ever made. This was accomplished using a red and green anaglyph system, effectively a rudimentary version of the red and blue system used in 3D films today. This system was not only used to create a 3D effect, but also to allow audiences to choose which ending they received by viewing the movie through only the red or green lens, depending on whether they wanted a happy or tragic conclusion. The Power of Love follows a woman named Maria, who is arranged to marry a criminal named Don Alvarez by her father due to his financial troubles. However, Maria ends up falling in love with Terry O'Neill, a man who was robbed and injured by Alvarez's associates. O'Neill later takes Alvarez's place at a masquerade ball, where Alvarez frames him for the robbery and murder of an old man. Alvarez attempts to shoot O'Neill, but Maria throws herself in front of the bullet. After she recovers from the wound, Maria proves that Alvarez is a thief and murderer and instead marries O'Neill. The Power of Love, despite marking such a massive technological achievement in cinematic history, is currently completely lost, with only a few still frames existing. Even the limited plot synopsis is only known because of a review of the film in Motion Picture World magazine. The Power of Love would later be re-released in 2D as a movie called Forbidden Lover, but this version is also completely lost. The Gulf Between is a 1917 comedy-drama film, known for being the first feature film shot using Technicolor, the first American film to be shot in color, and the fourth feature film to be shot in color overall. According to a review in Exhibitor's Herald magazine, The Gulf Between was about a young girl named Marie, who gets lost and is believed drowned due to the carelessness of her nurse. In reality, she has wandered onto the ship of a smuggler named Captain Flagg, who raises her as his own. Meanwhile, her biological parents adopt a young boy named Richard. Years later, Richard and Marie meet and they fall in love. Captain Flagg arranges their marriage to the protest of Marie's biological parents, who don't learn the truth of who she is until after the wedding. The film ends with Richard and Marie having their honeymoon aboard Flagg's ship. The Gulf Between was filmed using the rather complicated original Technicolor process known as System 1. System 1 required a prism beam splitter to be situated behind the camera, which exposed two frames onto a single strip of black and white film at the same time, with one frame behind a red filter and the other behind a green filter. Because two frames were exposed at the same time, the film had to be photographed as well as projected at twice the speed as normal. Playback of the film required a special camera with two apertures, two lenses, and an adjustable prism that aligned the two images on screen, as well as a skilled projectionist to operate it. This complex process led to The Gulf Between being the only film ever produced using System 1, and the impracticality of playing it in theaters led to it being lost. Only a few fragments remain of the film, kept within collections in the Margaret Herrick Library, the George Eastman House Motion Picture Collection, and the Smithsonian National Museum of American History. These fragments, unfortunately, are not viewable online. The Adventures of Pinocchio is a different kind of lost movie, where most lost films, including the others on this list, became lost due to being forgotten or even accidentally destroyed. The Adventures of Pinocchio is lost because it was never actually finished. Had it been completed, it would have been the first animated film to be produced in Italy and the first animated adaptation of the Pinocchio novel, but more notably, it would have been the first cel-animated movie ever, beating Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs by a year. In January of 1935, the newly formed Cartoni Animati Italiani Roma animation studio was commissioned by politician Alfredo Rocco to create a faithful animated adaptation of Carlo Collodi's famous children's novel, The Adventures of Pinocchio. However, the studio had run out of money less than 2 years later and production stopped. Director Raul Verdini attempted to finish the film while converting it to color, but was unsuccessful. By that time, Walt Disney Studios had acquired the right to the original novel and released their own adaptation in 1940. The Adventures of Pinocchio is believed to be completely lost today, with only the original script and some still frames managing to survive. Some believe that Walt Disney might have bought the original film negative alongside the rights to the adaptation, which would mean it could still exist within the studio's vaults. But even if this were true, Disney doesn't seem likely to release it anytime soon. Unlike in my video on the lost media that won't ever be found, I don't think I can say any of these 5 movies stand any chance of being rediscovered, as much as the film enthusiast in me desperately wants to say otherwise. What do you think? Do you think any of these will be found again? Are there any other cinematic landmarks you know of that have been lost to time? Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your opinions on what is such a fascinating subject to me. Before ending the video, I'd like to announce that I've just opened up a Discord server. You can talk about lost media, play games, or even suggest video ideas. You can join using the link found in this video's description or on my channel's About page. More videos are in the works, but in the meantime, thank you very much for watching.